I'm joined straight away with Paul Deach. That's great out in Florida. The live video will kick in at on Facebook in a second. And but Paul, good to see you, buddy. And we've already started the conversation with a mutual sport that we have in common. Or I used to play. I don't play it here. It's pickleball, which is, I guess, it's stereotypically an old person sport, but no, it's pretty good. Oh, let me just grab that. Let me just grab that cell phone. 1 second.
Sure. Oh shoot, I guess we're still live. No, Steve, I think like to your point though, it's so interesting how you're talking about how it's like kind of like the stereotype is that it's like a old, for like older people, but what's been really interesting is like a lot of people don't even realize that one of the things that you and I were talking about prior is there's like a professional circuit where mostly filled with like younger people. And I think what's been interesting, at least from what I've seen, and I haven't dived in depth so much on like the research and all these things, but recently somebody connected with me on LinkedIn from, I think he lives in Chile, and his whole thing is about like pickleball changes lives. And I haven't gotten the chance to have a conversation yet with him. Hopefully we will, like either this week or next. But it was interesting just seeing how he kind of approaches it from a different perspective about pickleball like changes lives, and from like a more global perspective. And what I've seen from looking at like his page and the way that like the movements and stuff that he's creating is that internationally it seems like it's mostly kind of geared toward the younger generation, which I think too is kind of important, because the thing that really dominates that younger generation, right, is the technology and all these things where it's like the sporting and the outdoor kind of aspect that I feel like a lot of people from the older generations and things have grew up doing. That's kind of faded a bit. So it's been interesting just seeing how he's been kind of using it as a vehicle to kind of shift people, to bring back some things or get them to do things that maybe they didn't want to do. And that really reminds me in many instances of a lot of and I'm sure you can relate to, Steve, like the work that you have to do and the conversations, right? Like the whole trick is just figuring out like how can you activate people, right? Or like get them to see what you want them to do, but kind of make sense of it in their world, and get them to kind of buy in and understand how this relates to what they're trying to achieve. So it's been really interesting.
It's and it's a fascinating sport. I mean, I love racket sports. I play most of them. I have played most of them except racquetball. I never really got into racquetball in the States because the ball was too bouncy and the racket was too small. The racket shaft was too small. It was like between squash and tennis. It's smaller. It's shorter. The head is about the same, probably the same size as the badminton, I'm guessing, but it's a shorter shaft. It was really weird. It messed up more of my other games. So I played tennis, I played squash, I played badminton, I played table tennis, I played pickleball. And pickleball is one of those that I think part of its appeal is that it's less equipment to set up. We used to play 4 courts in the space of one tennis court, because you pretty much use half of a tennis court.
Well, when I think
court for a pickleball court space, so it's good density, and it's not prohibitively expensive to get into.
That's what I was going to say. Like the finance aspect's like huge, because I think when we first started, I was telling you the story how like my cousins went and bought like a beginner set thing from Walmart or Target, and I think it was like $25, but it's like you now I will say like this is what I've learned recently when I got my own paddle is that like the paddle that you use makes like a huge difference because
Mhm.
I remember when I started playing and I got my new paddle, my partner that I was playing with, he's like, "Holy cows!" He's like, "You're like a completely different player." And I was like, "No, it's the paddle because I was using like a wooden one for the longest time, and it's like the one that I have now is like it it it's like fiberglass and it has that like core and stuff where things are a lot more bouncy. But I never really had a paddle that because the common thing like my hands are bigger, so I need one with like a longer handle thing that I can
Handle.
like hold. And this one has really good grip, so it's made a huge difference. But
We're geeking out. We're welcome, Barrington. How you doing, bro? Good to see you.
I'm okay.
Good,
I'm at home in
good.
bed. I'm trapped
Oh
nervous.
dear, are you not well, or you're just chilling right now?
Trapped nerve in my neck. So I've got to chill.
Oh, oh no, that's no fun. That's no fun. Well, take it easy. Mr. Whiskey's off camera. He must have whiskey shot running around or something. Mr. Mr. Whiskey, you there?
Oh,
Did I mute it? I didn't mute him, did I? No, I don't think
no,
it's
he might be having tech issues. It's
okay.
oh no
Oh, that's
um
Barrington's audio. Okay.
yeah. Steve, it's
Oh,
interesting. Like, I know you like to talk about like topics and things, and there was a post that I stumbled across yesterday on LinkedIn that I thought was really interesting. It's from Simon Alexander Ong. I know he's in the UK. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Steve, but
I just put his
he
last name.
um it, Ong ONG Simon
Okay.
Alexander Ong. He has an incredible book called Energize, and I met
Okay.
him last year, part of the Outlier Project, and he's been one of the few people that I've kept in touch with regularly on
Mm,
LinkedIn, like engage with his content and stuff. And it was so interesting. He was telling this story about how he he had his daughter who was like 5 and she wanted to go in the chocolate shop, and he said, and he looked at her and he said, "Okay, you can go inside, but I'm not buying anything." And the whole point of his post, and I'll kind of like get to the result and the story at the end, but he talked about like it's so important to not not close door. I wrote it down. Wait, what did it say? We closed doors that weren't ever locked. And I thought that that was a really interesting statement. And what he said was he thought that the only way that she was going to walk out with anything was if he bought it. But what ended up happening was she ended up kind of like persuading or convincing the people, and she came out with like a box of chocolates. And I thought that it's so interesting how, and I guess this kind of goes back to like the whole expectation things, right? On how like you have an expectation or something,
how
and
it's gonna go.
how, right, and then you just it's kind of like you don't give people the opportunity to not only surprise you, but maybe do things differently, or we tend to like take ourselves out of the game, you
Mm.
know, where it's like you think that, oh, this is the only way to do it. So I thought I would bring it up.
Yeah. Ahead of that's interesting. Ahead of time, I I got a bit. I did catch myself, but I was doom scrolling a little bit on Facebook as I was setting my invites out yesterday, and and something that caught me was a clip. He looked like he was dressed as a monk. He had the traditional orange Taoist outfit on, or robe, and he was saying, you know, when you eat, and when you sleep, and when you work. And we often find ourselves in situations where we're doing one thing but thinking of something else, so we find it very hard to be present. And it's almost cliche, but it's a very catchy way of calling us to be where we are at. And I totally agree with that. And at the same time, there has to be a point at which you have to think about the next thing or the something else. Otherwise, you will, if you sleep, if it's like the Newton's law. A body at rest stays at rest, and a body in motion stays at motion until a force is acted on it. And if you are sleeping, you'll stay sleeping unless you think about getting up. Or if you're working, you'll keep working until you feel hungry, and you think about eating. So there's always something else at the edge of the activity that you're present in. And all that to come back to the sweet shop, or the chocolate shop scenario, is that we can put ourselves into a future position and then negate it. Like you said, we lock the door that is only shut, because we don't entertain the fact that you could walk into a shop without buying something and have a great experience. You might get I imagine the daughter got a sample. She's super cute or something, and someone said, what's your favorite chocolate, and they gave her a sample of something. So the opportunities that present themselves to us shouldn't be negated out of hand. I think that's really the key. The key for me there.
Yeah, or I mean, like the thing that really kind of comes up for me is just like how everything is like so relative, to where you kind of are. Like to him, he was just looking at it from the lens of, oh, I don't want to have to, like, an expense almost, right? Like, oh, I don't want to have to buy this like chocolate thing. But for his daughter, like that was like a completely different experience. And I think to really connect it to like a professional perspective, I remember like one of the things that my mentor told me was, because I feel like sales is a very predictable, a lot of times like you tend to kind of like go based off of like patterns and tendencies. So a lot of times people like to kind of project and predict like what's going to happen almost. But I remember one of the things that she told me that was really interesting is that what's probably going to happen is the people that you think are gonna, like, for sure they're gonna buy, or they're for sure your ideal person, they're probably not. And a lot of your actual clients are gonna be the ones that you don't ever expect. And it, for me, I guess it reflected in a personal way, because from doing like events so long and meeting up with like thousands of people and having conversations, it kind of gets to that point where as you're talking with people, I don't do it as much lately, but before I would have tendency to kind of like say what they were going to say, or like predict or project. And I think like going back to what that story really taught me was the element of surprise, right? And how, I don't know if you feel this way, but I was talking about this with my aunt when we were watching like a TV show. And it's like, as you're watching the TV show, you're trying to predict like what's going to happen, or, and it's generally like a lot of, because where a lot of people find their joy and entertainment is usually in a lot of like drama and all these crazy things. And it's almost kind of like, you're not like wishing or projecting like bad things to happen, but you can kind of see like where the story's going. You're like, oh, this is going to happen, this. Yeah. But it was just really interesting.
The music gives it away.
Right.
I wish life had music, man. If I could hear the soundtrack to some of the things that I get up and I walk into a room and you hear dun 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 dun, then I'd probably walk back out again. It's like the Keenan Peele movie, Get Out. Right? I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny as heck, because it's like, they're watching it and they're going, "No, dude, you got to, there's all the signs are telling you to get out of that situation, but you choose not to." How are you, Carla?
I'm doing great. Hello, everybody. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Baron. Congratulations. I've been following you recently, and you've been showered all sorts of accolades and things going on with you. Congratulations.
Yes, it's a blessing. Thank you. It's all God. It's all God.
You want to share the latest?
The latest is a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award I received on this past Saturday.
Wow.
And I was on the stage with people who, thank you, with people who I was just in awe of. One was a 91-year-old former mayor of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, the first African-American mayor of Chapel Hill. He gave me his book and autographed it. I was honored to receive that and just to meet him. He served up in the Senate and everything. I also met another lady. She was 101 years old. She sat right in front of me, and she was honored as well. And she sprung out of her seat like a 25-year-old. So the talent that was on that stage with me was just amazing, and I'm grateful.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. Especially as you get up in age, it's nice to hear stories of. It's nice to hear longevity stories. Once you're over 50, you want to hear longevity stories.
Yes.
You don't want to.
They look great, both of them. You would not. There's no way I would have guessed their age, either one of them.
Wow.
No way.
Wow.
I was going to respond to something that you're speaking about, where you
All right. Yep.
see the clip that we smoked.
So your speaker's pretty low there, Barrington. It's hard to. Let me see if I can turn you up a little bit. That's a bit. Yeah, it's a bit better.
I was going to say, I wanted to respond to the thing where you were talking about the Taoist monk, the clip you're seeing on Facebook.
Yeah.
I used to be one of them.
Okay. Wow.
And the thing that science doesn't understand about spirituality is, in the stillness, there's movement. And in the movement, there's stillness. So stuff's always going on. So the expectation for whatever is there. But you'll only get what you energetically are sharing with the world. People read that sixth sense all the time, but they don't acknowledge it. Whereas what Carla was saying about the older people, the elders, that's the thing that they worked with and worked on all the time.
Yeah.
But they never spoke about it. It was something that was just conveyed in how they did things. And the more that you get into that, what it does is it decreases the amount of blockages that you have within yourself. So you stay younger, you look younger, you act quicker, your mind works faster. There's all those types of things, but coaching and all these other things, science doesn't take those things into consideration because you can't measure it in statistical studies and through data. So that you, as you were saying, Paul, about projecting and reading people, the mind is connected to everything.
Right.
Always has been, always will be. But people will tell you, oh, you're an individual. Well, yeah, your physical body is an individual, but your energy field isn't. It's connected to anything and everything, the trees, the animals, you know what I mean? It's connected. And if you're sensitive enough and aware enough, you can hear them talking. You can hear the music in your own head. A tune might come up and you're thinking, why is that tune come up? Well, that's the music. That's the message that you're getting from the universe to highlight to you, here's something you better look at or be aware of, or this is coming. And because we've become so technological and so individual, we've forgotten about the sense of oneness and the sense of community and the unspoken stuff, because 90% of communication is unspoken. It's energetic, and if you're sensitive enough, you can read it all day, every day. So you know what someone's coming to you with, because it's a reflection of your own stuff, your own thoughts, your own ideas, your own beliefs. It's all of that. And it helps you to see opportunities, because somebody telling you something about something which you might think, oh, that's so irrelevant, that might be the thing that pushes you to think about something in another way, or shows you, right, I need to go over here.
That's the surprise element that Paul was talking about.
But it's not a surprise, it's awareness.
Well, yeah, it's from a different area that you may have thought your client or your interaction may be with a particular type of person, but you then the surprise, the energetic connections may not be the same as the logical thing that you think of. You walk into a room and think, oh, that's my persona, that's my ideal customer profile, and you have an interaction there, and it doesn't resonate, or it doesn't sit well, or something happens, and then you find that there's somebody else either in the room or in a different space that does resonate, and it may be a surprise where that came from, in the sense that it's not where you logically would think to look. Some of my best interactions are just serendipitous, right? I mean, and I've got to celebrate, to Carla's point about sprightly 90-year-olds and 100-year-olds, is that there is a sentiment of celebrating longevity just by acknowledging that you've been around. I feel like there's fewer blockers when you're living well, and that's not tied to masses of things. I think when you just live well, you're comfortable in your skin. You surround yourself, you're in that sort of your own personal blue zone. You got people and energy and vitality around you, whether it's activities. I was talking about music before you guys joined with Paul. That's really kind of energized me and brought me into other circles. And you show up as an older person. I show up with less baggage. I feel like I've been around long enough to kind of put it down.
Steve, I think to your point, because I did a podcast episode about this like a couple months ago, about how so many people feel like the older that they are, they look at social media as like a barrier or a disadvantage. But I actually think that the older people are, the more advantageous it is. Number one, because you don't have a lot of competition, but they have so much experience and like wisdom to share, that like that my generation and even the ones before like need, like they need a lot of that. And I think you've been hearing this phrase kind of pop up along more, where you're starting to see people say like the old school like values and mentality and stuff is becoming the new school, because a lot of it has been fading just from everyday life and all these things. And I guess to Barrington's point, like it's not, I wouldn't really look at it as a surprise, but it's just like a new perspective, right? Because it's like, I think that's the problem online nowadays, because you have such a huge age gap, right? Of people from like, 5, 8 years old all the way to people who are like 80, 90, and even 100, is that people aren't connecting from like a feeling perspective or like stories. They're trying to connect through context. And that was kind of like one of the big things that I learned, is that a lot of times like the context of everyone's stories may be a little bit different, right? Or you may not have like relatability and all those things, but where everybody can kind of connect is in the feelings. And I guess to my way of thinking, I actually think individuality is actually really important, because I think that a lot of people lose their identity in other things, whether it's like communities or other people. So it's important to have that sense of, individuality, and like asking yourself like, oh, what do I think about this? Or so many times people are told to do things, and this is kind of how I grew up with my grandparents, right? Like, because I said so, and this is how we've always done things. And I was like, well, it might be time to do things differently, right? Or yeah.
Ooh, and you're still here.
You could do that in Carla's household. Well,
I would say I didn't say that then, but it was just more like I I always wondered why. Like I was always a curious person, so I think that's where a lot of the discernment for me comes, like, and why I can have a lot of like complex conversations, because I'm always just curious, right? Like if somebody, I was having a conversation that people were very like surprised, like I was getting so many messages like, oh my god, this person's, you know, this or that and all these things, like how can you be so calm? But it's like it goes back to that idea of most people don't even know why they think or feel the way that they do. And what I learned is that as I got older, the reason why people would say like, oh, because, you know, because I said so, or this is how we've always done things, is because they didn't know why it was done that way. You know, they couldn't like explain it. So I think that's been a huge thing for me, was being able to explain and kind of understand why people do things or why they feel the way that they do. And it's been really interesting how that kind of concept has really like transcended the age gap, you know, because a lot of times people just don't. That's the bigger challenge, I would say, with the older demographic and online, is that they just don't know how to communicate in the modern world because they didn't have this, you know, all these technology and resources. So it's been interesting, but that's just my take.
No,
I disagree with you some Paul, with that. There are people there that are older who communicate very well in the modern world. They're in a lot of the communities that I'm in. They're between, I'll say, 70 to 85, and some of them are still working full-time jobs every day. Nice. They're sharp. They know how to work Canva and Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff. They're on platforms I'm not even on, but we just don't. To me, the media doesn't show enough of that, and people don't talk enough about it. We tend in the United States, to me, push our elderly away and don't give them the respect that they deserve, and we need to show more positive things like that are going on. But there just in one of the communities that I'm in, there's probably about 40 very strong 70 to 85-year-olds that could run circles around all four of us with no problem. And not in a bad way, but they really could. That's how sharp they are. They travel, they do it all.
I agree with what Carl is saying, because like I'm 60. My mum came to the UK when she was 15 from Barbados. So she's educated herself, same like my father, blah, blah, blah. It depends upon your household. And your household is part of a wider community. So when we was growing up, we knew we were black. We knew we were from the Caribbean. We were born in Manchester. So there's different layers. And depending on how those layers are constructed and developed, you get information, you get understanding, you get context, you get nuance. Whereas with the young people, I've taught in schools, I work in social care, so I do social work. I'm in people's families from young to old. Big difference, what I would say is, social media, with the onset of social media and the way in which government and society is functioning, it's system-based and it's data-driven. So they have to have the social media outlets and those big tech organizations, because all they're really doing is trying to replicate human-to-human interaction in an automatic way, which gives you clickbait. And that's what it is. Every single person on social media, they're baiting up one another. I'm saying this, you're saying that. And you get 1,000,001 people typing. But if you put those same people in a room to discuss that one issue, you'll find you'll have more people in agreement than disagreement. Factual. Because you get a consolidation of the energy, not the stuff that comes out of your mouth. Anyone can say anything behind the screen. When you're face to face, like I know when I was growing up, I'd run around on the street thinking I'm a big man and I got a big mouth and I'm gobbing it off. And an elder will just look at me, yo, Barrington, I know your father. Different ball game then, because he's giving me a lesson. You don't have to say much, because I know there's a collective consciousness in relation to responsibility and action and accountability. So even although stuff wasn't explained overtly like you have now, you have to explain everything to everybody about every single thing. Some things are just a given. And I know this through doing social work. I can go into someone's home and I can tell you within the first minute, this body's doing that body's doing that. This is the issue between them and them. The children are just responding to what the parents or the elders are showing them. And little Johnny and little Sarah need a bit of space. So you speak to them and then you find, oh, right, well, I wasn't brought up like that. I wasn't brought up like that. The young people are not asked, they're not shown how to ask older people questions. Everything you've done, I've done it. Everything and more. Way more. Same with Carla, same with, we've done it. Yeah. It might look different, but it's the same stuff. And people think human behavior is that diverse, which it is, but the experiences are not, because we're confined within our understanding of what life is. So these things that I thought I would never do, like I never thought I would end up in a community of so-called Hindu Buddhist monks ever in my life. A black folk, nah, just not a thing. You just don't go there. But I did. But I'll say it was one of the best things that I did, because it opened my eyes to different things. And in opening my eyes, it showed me, well, I was being shown that just in a different way, and I didn't get it. And the thing with young people, you want everything explained because you've got this scientific method. Some things you can't explain, and that's factual in life. You know, I've done meditation and the walls have dissolved, the floor's gone, and I'm just sitting like I'm in the middle of the universe. But they'll tell you that the wall's solid. No, it's not. And until you experience it in and of yourself, you have no idea. So in a monastery or an ashram, they'll tell you, shut your mouth, shut up, be quiet, because you've no idea, none. And that's what's happening. People are spouting with no experience of the things that they're talking about. It's a hearsay. So the older ones can talk with validity and concreteness because they've been through it and they know what the lessons are and they can share it. Whereas social media is your go-to. Google, ChatGPT, AI is your go-to. Let me go and get my answers there. I can't tell you all the answers because you have to experience stuff in and of yourself to know whether it's real or not.
That's it. And it's interesting. Like I just made a note there in terms of, because we talked about, Barrington brought up the communal or the collective experience, and Paul brought up the individual experience. And it's interesting we're talking. It's not verses, but they may be along a continuum. There's the individual experience and how you show up for yourself, understanding your own personal boundaries so that you can interact with another person's boundaries in terms of forming a collective and either sharing ideas or sharing experiences. And then we've also talked like from a generational aspect. You know, it's one thing me being an older person interacting with another older person, but when you've got generational ties in terms of just time on the planet, and I was brought up to respect that. You know, I always, it was just ingrained. It was something that, like Barrington says, no one necessarily tells you, but you see it acted out. You see the deference generally good in a positive way, the deference to somebody who is older, but with an eye to curiosity. My children's experiences are not my experiences, and I can't diminish their experiences just because I'm older. You know, so I'm looking for those connections. I'm looking for them being their own person, which I love. I'm super proud of them in terms of just where they are, how they operate, and them being their own person, because that's important, so that I can go feeling that they have, they've been launched well, if you like. And at the same time, having that connection now, which is very different, where it's an adult connection with my children, not a parent-child. When I was raising them and they're under my roof, and I was, supporting them and providing, some of those discussions, like because I said so, were me running my parent tape and them listening as a child, right? And that's just a given in that context. But to see them develop and we have adult to adult conversations, it's a whole different dynamic. I feel like they're freer to express, they're freer to contradict, they're freer to explain their rationale in the context of how they're living in their 20s. My 20s are not the same as their 20s. I mean, we have, again, there's experiential things that, you feel heartache, pain, frustration, anger. Those are emotional threads that are universal. They may show up in different ways and take on different forms, but they are kind of universal to the human experience. So I'm not saying that, their pain and my pain are the same, but just understanding that there's that generational connection, which I've really, this is why this space exists. I mean, but apart from sort of saying, I've got a show and, people sharing stuff that they're doing in their world, this is a space where I just sort of turn on the screen and feel comfortable talking to friends, and one day, God willing, we'll meet in person, and it will feel consistent. It won't feel strange, which I think which sometimes when you're in social media spaces, you're not always sure what you're going to get if you met the person that was talking, and if you're carrying very polarizing views. Like you said, the chances of you talking the way you talk online in person to discuss a topic wouldn't necessarily be the same. So, and to your point, Carla, I mean, kudos, you got the oldest president in the US still using social media. So that's an example of people in their older ages being. I mean, maybe it's too savvy on social media, but we won't talk about DJT.
Well, like Steve, I kind of just wanted to respond to what Carla and Barrington said. So, like, where I was kind of going with it was, for me, like, I look at influencers kind of like the big term that, like, a lot of this generation is using, and for me, I always looked at a lot of the older experienced people as like the influencers, because they have the experience, and a lot of the people now, they're just like a face, you're just paying them because they have followers or this or that. But I learned very quickly in the professional training and coaching spaces that was probably the number one problem, was that you had a lot of people teaching things that they haven't done. So it's like when people would hit all these speed bumps and hurdles, because they weren't their first client, they weren't able to effectively guide them out of it. And where I was going with, like, that's the barrier, is that for a lot of them, they just didn't grow up with it, right? And it's where I was going to, where I feel like a lot of times it's hard for you to speak through something unless you've actually been in it. Like, a lot of the conversations that I have with, parents and even a lot of my clients is like, you know, when you were like 20 or whatever it was, like how what do you think would have happened if like everything that you did was like monitored, or, you know, you were always like getting all this stuff? And they always tell me like I have no idea, right? But yeah, and that's where for me I just appreciate these conversations, because it's like I haven't lived your experience, but I can kind of like appreciate it and find something in it that, you know, is relatable, or there's a connection there. So that's just for me kind of how I look at it. But I agree with what they were saying, you know, is that and where I was going with it too is from like a general perspective. I mean, like there's always the outliers, there's always, you know, exceptions and stuff, but there's a lot of people, I would say majority of people in that demographic who they feel like a challenge, right? Like there's a reason why you're not seeing more of those people online. So that's just kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah. No, it's it's definitely encouraging. Any other? There was something that I was going to share. Whiskey was going to. It's mentioned last week about talking a bit about his work in the suicide prevention space, but it was something else that was on my mind in terms of, I thought, oh, you know, I might bring this up at the cooler, and it escaped me now. It may have been around the music, for me, this I was just sharing with Paul before we actually went live. I did a Facebook post about me playing cajon, or it went in LinkedIn and Facebook. It was interesting. I had a few people from various areas in my social spaces sort of come back and resonate with it. And interestingly enough, people I know in person, which is really, I always like when people who know me kind of take the time to sort of say, oh, I saw your post and didn't know that you were doing that, or didn't know you were doing this. And I guess the upshot of that is I guess probably being, I don't know if it's just being older, but like not that I care less, but I don't hold as strong a weight on people's opinion of what I want to express or what I do. As for me, as long as it's consistent, I don't want to show up in different spaces as different people. You know, and then sometimes, obviously, if you're in a professional setting, act professional. If you're in a personal setting or an intimate setting, you act accordingly in those places. But you don't rock up as like a Jekyll and Hyde. You know, you don't want to be so disparate, you know, so disparate or so different that it's irksome. People go, well, I didn't think, you know, that person wasn't who I thought it was. But then just sharing stuff that is passionate for me, it really informed how I show up for things that I enjoy and how I can leverage. Yeah, that was the point. That I was really inspired and encouraged this weekend playing music, performing, which I hadn't done before. It's first time actual performance, rather than just sort of rocking up and playing, jamming with people. And then recognizing that the energy that you get from that sort of thing can be applied to other areas of life. You know, it's something that you could translate. It shows what's possible. It's the impossible to I'm possible, right? I can rock up and entertain an audience, or, you know, just enjoy what I'm doing, and people watch me play with a band. So and that emotion, that feeling, the intentionality of doing something, putting yourself out there, feeling the butterflies, feeling nervous, you know, Carlo in the speaking space, there's elements we can all relate to in terms of, wow, you know, we show up in this context, and there's learnings from that can apply to other areas. So
it's like removing the expectation and kind of like just being in your experience almost, you know, like not trying to filter it for what you think people want, or how you feel like, oh, I feel like this is what people want from me, or I should show up this way.
Mm.
And it's just like being yourself, I think. Because Steve, we talked about this last week as well, like when I met Mr. Whiskey in person, and I always tell people, like, I'm the exact same person, I'm just a lot taller in person. And
He doesn't
it
tell
was
you.
and it was funny because for a lot of it too just depends on how you look at things. Like for me, I just looked at social media as like a tool and a vehicle to just amplify what I do. I remember my mentor said, like, what you do online multiplies and amplifies what you do on foot. A lot of people
Mm.
think that just because you have the online thing that you don't have to, like, go out and meet people and have conversations and relationships and all those things. But I just look at it as another tool to express, like, who I am and learn. The big thing that I feel like has really been missing, to what Barrington was talking about, like the the grace perspective is like a really huge thing. And I remember, because I lived in Hawaii for most of my life. I moved to Florida in March of 2022. There were a lot of like cultural things that when I came that I didn't know. And it's like, I wasn't like intentionally being disrespectful, but like to their way, because we lived like completely different and stuff. It was disrespectful. So I think there are things that, you just learn by experience. And going back to that story that we were talking about earlier about the his 5-year-old daughter and the candy thing, he he wrote in his post, it was almost kind of like the fearlessness that a lot of like kids have, right, to like just be themselves and do things like messy and fail. And Steve, I can't remember the name of the movie, but when you were talking about the clip that you saw on Facebook, there was a clip that I saw a while back. I don't remember the name of the movie, but I remember George Clooney was in it, so that'll probably like narrow the choices down. And in it, he talked about how he asked this guy like a question, because I guess he was in his he was an aspired artist, I believe. It was either an artist or musician, one of the two. And he asked him, he's like, when did you decide to kind of give up on, your dreams, right? And I think that in many instances, that's a big part of the conversation, is that as people become more influenced, as they get older, if you don't have that sense of values and identity and who you are, it's easy to kind of lose that, because you're always being persuaded, you're always being sold something, right, whether you want it or not. And that's kind of, for me, what's been really interesting, is that willing to be different and do things differently has been really
Mm.
fun for me, just because you're taught, like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do it this way, and people can only teach what they've really done. So that's why I love these conversations. It's
Yeah.
been interesting just to meet new people and learn.
And the teaching a dog old, teaching, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, Carla's experience from the people that she met and in her circles, breaks that down. It sort of, that doesn't exist. And then and then you can have the mindset of young people don't know anything because they're young, because they haven't experienced anything. Everyone's experience is valid. And uh, and it's, like I say, giving up on a dream. It was 2018 when I left the States that I'd said to a friend at church when I was leaving, and he was an aspiring cajon player, and like we made this sort of pact that we would go off and pursue that. It felt doable because it's not like I wanted to go climb Everest, and it's not like I wanted to learn a very complicated instrument. It was something, it's percussive, so you play it at the level that you play it at, you're comfortable with. So we thought we could, it was easy to make that agreement, at the time, but then life gets in the way, and I said, you overestimate what you do in a year, and you underestimate what you can do in a decade. And so it was just interesting. You wake up one morning and you're an overnight musician. Well, no, nothing works that way. You got to take the hits. You got to do the journey. You got to keep true to a dream, even if it's dormant for a while. Even if sometimes people come along unexpectedly and ignite. They don't even know they're doing it. They're just doing their thing, and their thing happens to coincide with your thing. And you create that spark or that synergy, and to never lose it. I mean, I can imagine that the lady stepping out, jumping out of her chair at 101 to go up there and do and get her award or presentation, because it's not because she was preparing herself for that presentation. She gets up that way. It wasn't the first time she jumped out of her chair.
With heels.
They
were low heels, but she had on heels.
What?
Yes, she had on heels.
Come on, man.
I had on flats. She had on heels. Yes.
Bam.
Blew me away.
So, but the thing is, it's not the first time she's done it.
No.
So that, I think that is a testimony. People watching this, find. People that follow your passions and stuff, follow your dreams. Yes, have them in a way that ignites you. Understand that the journey isn't A to B straight line. It's a messy middle, a very messy middle. Sometimes you got to take the desert road, right? The exiles out of Egypt could have got there in a week. It took them 40 years, right? So sometimes the desert road is the way you got to go, and go through experiences before you get to where you're going to. So, but then embrace it, and then build curiosity. Curiosity is a great thing. I mean, I like that about what you say, Paul, and what you share is that it disarms polarizing positions, because it causes people to think about their position. A lot of people who have something that is diametrically opposed to what you think, you don't often have an opportunity to question or to inquire, because you're entrenched in where you're at. So curiosity and inquiry and nuance is lost on that, because you're just and so we see that in social spaces, in disconnected asynchronous spaces. But if you get back to a place where even like this, I'm not meeting any of you in person, but even if you're in a space where you're synchronously communicating, it's the different mindset than you sort of going off and trolling somebody or writing things that are sort of inciting or inflammatory. So it's important. It's a main skill. I see people who are so busy with platforms that they find it hard to do things in person. And it may be an offshoot from COVID. I get that we had physical isolation, so we were forced onto platforms, even to communicate with people that we would normally communicate in person. So, to Barrington's point, the 90 odd % of our communication drops, because that's all the non-verbal stuff, and now we're forced to do all our communication through platforms like this because we couldn't see people. We're isolating. So I know there's still we're still counting the cost, I'm sure, from that.
It's by design, though. That's the thing that people don't question. It was by design. It was to put you on the platforms, because if you, like, I could text you, Steve, or I could text you, Carla, and you'll see a string of words, because you're not looking at what's behind the words. What message is it really conveying?
You can't see it.
The words that he says, ha 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 ha, I think you're daft. Yeah. But it might be something about something you've said that I've responded to, but mine putting the words on the text isn't matching the speed at which my thoughts are going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you think about the intergenerational thing, people learn by doing. Go out there and, like, when we were kids, we'd run up and down all day, every day. Mud bombs, mud pies, all kinds of crazy stuff. You know what I mean? You'd find 2 pieces of wood and you'd make something from it. You'd find a doll, the doll's pram. You'd rip the wheels off the doll's pram and make a little go-kart. You do all kinds of crazy stuff. Kids don't do that. They don't do that these days. They're not interested. So we learned how to do a whole raft of things, but didn't necessarily understand the skills that we're teaching us in the widest context. But you go and ask Granddad, he listens to your car, oh, your carburetor needs sorting out, blah, blah, blah. I remember I worked at, before I was doing social work, I worked in research, chemistry, and I worked for this organization, Corto. They're not around anymore. They used to make textiles, so like Gossard and Aristoc.
Bring your mic closer. Bring your mic closer, Barrington.
Sorry, can you hear now?
That's much better. Yeah.
I used to work for Courtaulds, and they made textile stuff, so like Aristoc and Gossard lingerie for women and all that kind of viscose and stuff. And I remember we went to a plant up in Staffordshire, and they had this 80-year-old guy. He'd been there since he was like 16, 17. And literally, he would walk you around the plant, and the plant was huge. And all he had to hear is how the machinery was functioning. And he'd tell you, oh, you need to go and tighten that screw on that thing because the flow's not right. That's knocking. You need to take some of the pressure out of that tank there. That, oh, right, no, that don't look right. And he would literally tell you everything that was going on in that plant. Like the older folks, they didn't have to know you was doing mischief outside, because you'd come in and it's written all over you. Do you understand me? It's written all over you in your energy. And they're like, okay, what have you been up to? What have you been up to? And they will ask you leading questions. Where have you been? What have you been up to? Oh, have you seen so and so? You're giving answers thinking, oh, I'm being dead innocent and dead sweet and dead nice. Where they're thinking, all right, they've got intelligence because them know. That's what I'm saying. When you put yourselves in very, very different environments. So I come back from a research lab to working with children. Yeah. Blew my head off. But because I'd worked in them and because I'd worked in a lab, and there's certain processes that you get used to. So you train yourself to think and ask questions. You ask the kids a question and they're scratching their head because it's dead basic. What have you been up to? You don't want to tell you, but you know what they're telling you. I've been up to mischief. I've got myself in trouble. Blah, blah, blah. Well, why? Do you know what I mean? It's that. And it's asking the right questions at the right time in the right environment. You not only get an answer to this question here, but you get an answer to a whole load of questions that you might have posed before. And we forget that because we see life in this little box. This is my life and I'm doing. And I've got influence over me.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
Don't look at the other boxes, just this one.
Your box is connected to a million and other boxes. Everyone you interact with, your energy impacts them in some way and they influence you in some way. But we forget that because here I am. I'm an individual. Get real. No. Nature shows you. COVID showed human beings you ain't it, because it sat everybody down.
We all need each
Fish
other.
came
Correct.
back, birds came back, trees came back.
Thank you. When humans are off the planet or sat down, life flourishes, because humans think they're it. But the sitting down had one purpose only: to put humans in touch with themselves again.
It's true.
Because we've never ever been able to sit down and look at ourselves.
Yeah.
We look at ourselves through social media, through this, through my job, through my relationship, through this, through that. No, let me look at me. It's like going and standing in front of the mirror. Let me look in front of the mirror and look at me. And everything you don't like and everything you like will be there.
It's in
And you
you.
can't dodge it. And that's the thing that the older people knew. They kept secrets, but somebody always knew. Someone knew.
Yeah.
Someone always knows. And it's that. And we shrink. We shrink our own understanding of who we are to fit a society that we say is working. Society's not working. People are. Because it's not the system. The system's made up of the people, not the machinery. And we focus on the machinery instead of the people. If the people just stopped for one day, this whole place would collapse. COVID showed it. COVID showed it.
Yeah, we're important. We matter. There's a matter in there, and that's it's again. I think we collectively understand the value of that in terms of how important it is to foster those real connection, as opposed to sort of the contrived things. Again, that's why I do the one-to-one thing, the podcast in that respect, in terms of just having those conversations. It's always unscripted. It's always organic, because that's the best way. That's the best way to show up, sort of authentically, But no, this has been insightful. We dug deep and covered quite a few things. I haven't heard much from you, Carla. How are you doing? Just wanted to, before we're going to wrap up.
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying listening to Barrington today, and Paul and you. I wasn't expecting this, but you never know what to expect at the water cooler.
That's very true. And for Mr. Whiskey, I don't know if he's got a technical issue. I guess I should do my own plug. But yeah, that's I think I'm sure there's going to be something out there. Tales from the water cooler. There's definitely some insights and learnings in this space that can inspire. Just think and inspire and encourage, without being contrived or sort of chat GPT'd or all that sort of stuff. Sometimes you just gotta hang back and have a space where you can share. Interestingly, we're doing it publicly. We're doing it on live streams. And you go, well, why did you do that? Well, because part of this is being unapologetic. There's a strength in that, because if I have conversations where I would say to Paul, Paul, I'm talking to Paul, and I go, well, I would never say this in public, but and I say something to him, then maybe that conversation is what needs to be aired in public, because it would resonate with, people aren't having those conversations. And they, and again, there's lots of places where people sort of go, I wouldn't talk about that in public. And outside of sort of personal discretion, there's an opportunity to be unapologetic. Is my point. Is that, you know, be bold, be you, be true, be real, and courteous, respectful, and all of those key values that allows you to operate in the world in a positive way, with curiosity, with I don't want to say transparency, but with curiosity and with boldness. You know, the scriptures talk about, you know, not having a spirit of timidity. If you've been endowed with a spirit of boldness, then act on that boldness in a rightful way, not self-righteous, but in a rightful way. You know, if you've got values, share them. If you've got opinions, articulate them. Like Barrington said, you know, sometimes the right question in the right way, in the right context, is the key that unlocks a whole thread of insight. So I really appreciate you all being here, and just you know, I'm happy to. I'm honestly okay launching my 4:30 call and not having anybody here, and me just talking to that camera in front of me, and at the same time I'm always fired up with where conversations go, who drops in, whether you're regulars like we see on the screen here, or whether it's a first time, someone who sees my invite week in, week out and goes, let me see what this guy's about, he keeps sending me this thing, you know, or you know, the timing works, and you never know, that serendipitous connection comes up, and you spark a connection across the world, or down the road. But final thoughts? Give final thoughts around the room.
Yeah, I
Final
think.
thoughts for me.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me on here and always inviting me to your platform. Barrington, you are a wealth of wisdom, and Paul, you are too. Two different generations, but I felt like I was sitting here with the three wise men from the Bible today. So, hey,
I wanted to ask
awesome.
you about like, what do you do? Because like I heard Steve talking about all your rewards, but I don't know. It's the first time I've met you, and I don't know what you do or
My
what
apologies.
you're involved with or anything like that. So it'd be interesting to hear. And plus, like, you're in America, and like the UK and America are so different in terms of the way they see life and they see the world and stuff that's going on. So just to find a little bit more about you and what you do and why.
I would definitely friend you today. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I work with children. I'm a kids dance specialist. I'm a politician. I do a little bit of everything. Yes.
Okay.
I will definitely friend you. So, and I'll be back on here. Steve knows I hop on here regularly as much as I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So know more about me.
Carlos awesome. Barrington, final thoughts?
It was an interesting conversation because I clicked in when he was talking about the music, and it seems like music is a theme that's underneath a lot of things. So it's like, do you know what I mean? It speaks to other things. So I think it's been a interesting, eye-opening conversation, and I suppose it's good to have Paul because he's younger. I don't know how younger he is. Are you in your 30s?
28.
Okay, so yeah, the age difference is really good because, like, I've got children. The oldest is 34, but I'm working with children that are in the early years, like 3 to 11, and even that's different. But there's similarities, and it's looking at, right, okay, why are these things happening?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you can see the influence isn't the children, it's the adults.
Yeah.
And when the adults deal with whatever they need to deal with, you see the children blossom.
Yeah.
When they see an example, they blossom. And it's that curiosity. The children will ask you questions which you would never even conceive in your own mind. They're just random and off the cuff. There isn't no scripted, prescriptive answer to what they're asking you. They're asking you to be you.
Mm.
And I think that's come across in this. You just have to be you.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Paul.
Oh my! This was such a fun conversation. I really enjoyed the contrast and just getting to learn more about people. I would say for me, like I feel from this conversation more than anything, my takeaway from it was the most profound lesson that I've learned about life, which is that everything's relative, and there's always someone who's ahead and behind of you in certain areas. And as much as it is important to reach up to grow, it's also important to reach back to teach, because there's so many people that they look at, whether it's age, gender, race, like whatever it is, they look at that as a limiting factor, and they think it's a disadvantage when it's actually an incredible asset, because you're able to kind of help make sense of things for other people. And like, it's like for me, the generation that I probably connect the least with is mine and younger, because I grew up with my grandparents and I've always been around, that older age demographic. So it's been really fun getting to have these conversations and learn new things. And the fact that it's global is just fascinating, because most people like never ever leave Hawaii, even though you have people from all over the world that come there. So it's been really cool to get to meet and interact with people from all over the world, both in person and online.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for making my day. This is a big rock in my week, and it's something that I look forward to and I relish, and I love the spontaneity of where the conversations go. I may have a general idea or thought, but it's totally up to how the I guess the energetic dynamic works within people that come into the space. Thanks, Will, for popping in and saying hi. He dropped a quick note in Facebook, and it's just great. And we'll be doing this again next week. Thank you, Carla Barrington.
You're welcome.
And you're both on LinkedIn. I'll make the introduction. I'll do an introduction there. And Paul's asking about LinkedIn, Facebook, and Barrington as well. So yeah, we'll get you all connected, and it'll be great. Thank you again for those watching the live or the repeat. Thanks. This is our virtual water cooler. It's here every week. Come and join us, have a chat. You don't have to stay as long as we do, but certainly just come in and pop your head in the door. Take a sip from the knowledge, the font of knowledge that's here, font of wisdom, and we'll see you. We'll see you next time. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.
See you later. Bye.